Okay, so thank you again for joining us today. I'm Pam Armour with Minnesota Personalized Medicine. I welcome you to our Happiness Hour. This is a series of events that we host, all with different topics each time. But the idea is to teach you something that is non-pharmaceutical, and it benefits the 5 fundamentals of health that our clinic believes very strongly in. That is eating, breathing, sleeping, moving, and loving or communicating. So today's topic, it's our pleasure to have Galen Wetzell and Lea Wetzell here to talk about the longevity blueprint, which would be strength and nutrition strategies for aging gracefully. We are really honored to have both of you here, Galen and Lea. Galen, as many of you know, he is a doctor in physical therapy. He is the owner of Creekside Physical Therapy in Edina, where they do physical therapy as well as whole body rehabilitation, therapeutic breath work, and more, right? Galen is a fairly new partner to Minnesota Personalized Medicine, whereas our physicians, Dr. Plotnikoff, Dr. Lind, and Dr. Doyle, make recommendations to our patients at the time when it's appropriate for physical therapy. Galen is our go-to guy. And then Lea, we're honored to have Lea here today too. She's our licensed nutritionist. She has a background in integrative and functional nutrition, right? And she has the honor of being appointed by Governor Dayton twice. So for an 8-year term, she was the chair of the Board of Dietetics and Nutrition Practice for the state of Minnesota. So she has a wonderful background as well. So I think with that, I will hand it over to Galen and Lea.
Thanks so much, Pam. So as Leah's getting the PowerPoint pulled up here, just wanted to thank everybody for being here. This is a topic that's really, really important to both her and I, and we just really hope that you're able to get a lot out of it. If you pull it up. So really the title speaks for itself, and my hope with this session that you're able to tune in here is that you leave with not just specific exercises to do, but more of a framework or a blueprint, hence the name. So we're going to talk about some things that will help to guide you to make sure that as far as longevity is concerned, that you're doing the right things for you. Because one of the most common things that I see if I'm working out in a gym, for example, is that people just look aimless when they're in the gym. I'll see them going from different machine to machine, and they don't necessarily have that sense of purpose that really comes across as far as this is what their intent is. And so my hope with this presentation is to give you a clearer sense of how to figure out what to be doing based off your goals. So as I get in here, I think this is a great quote. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Well, the best time to get into exercise was 20 years ago, but the second best time is right now as well. And I want to just encourage you, wherever you are, whatever age you are, to know this truth that you can make changes at any age. There have been a handful of studies that have looked at women in their 80s and 90s that are still able to build bone density. There are studies that look at people of men and women of all ages that are able to improve their cardiovascular health, their cognitive health. So my encouragement for you is wherever you are at this stage in the game is to be okay with that, to call a spade and be honest with where you are, but also to acknowledge that you have the capacity to change. And I really hope that as we finish up and go through this presentation, that you leave here with that felt sense that you can change, you can accomplish the goals that you set out to do. And hopefully with the framework or the blueprint that we're going to share with you today, it will give you some ideas of how to get clear on that. Now, I'm paraphrasing here from Tony Robbins, but I think this quote really hits home for me. The only way to truly make a change to do something different in your life is to turn your shoulds into a must. Shoulds and oughts, they might get done. Oftentimes they won't get done. Musts will get done. If you must pay your mortgage, you're going to get that done. If you must pick up your kids by 3 p.m., otherwise late charges are going to pile up, you're going to get that done. And so if there's something that you really aspire to do, that you want to be able to do in the context of our presentation, obviously we're talking about health, but the key is you need to turn, I should get healthier, I should change my diet, into I must change my diet. This is something that I must do because of dot, 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 whatever that is for you. So that's the first step, is to make a decision that you are going to make a change in your health, or maybe you're going to continue what you're doing, because there might be some of you out there that are rocking it and you're doing your cardio, you're getting your VO2 max training, you're doing strength training to help with your bone density and all these different things. Awesome. Keep going. Know that you're walking the path, you're doing the things that you need to do. But for others, you may realize that today hopefully is an invitation for you to make a change, to make a decision about what you want your life to look like today and tomorrow and the next decade and the next decade after that. And it all begins with why. Once you have made a decision that you are ready to make a change, that you are no longer willing to have lack of balance or have poor bone density scores or have poor gut health, once you decide that this is a must for you to be able to do, then it comes down to figuring out why. Why is this so important for you? Is it because you don't want to end up frail like a loved one? Is it because you want to be able to play with your grandchildren in 2 decades from now? Maybe you want to see your grandchild graduate from high school or college, or maybe you have great grandchildren, or maybe you want to travel. Whatever that why is to you, I think it's so important that you spend some time drilling down into what that is, because that is the emotional rocket fuel that's going to keep you going when you don't want to exercise, when there are some tempting foods that maybe you shouldn't be eating. It's no longer a temptation at that point in time, because you're going back to your why. And I mean, I'm going to encourage you, if you don't have a known sense of what that is, to take some time with that and not just jot it down on a piece of paper and it's done. Why do I want to get better? Oh, I want to be fit when I'm 90. You can do better than that. You need to connect an emotion to it. If you can connect an emotion to your why, it is so much more powerful. You can feel it in your body. That is the thing that's going to help to guide you as you go through the years and the decades. And of course, none of us know how long we have to live, but why not plan to live healthily into your 80s or 90s or 100s? And the things that we're going to talk about today will help you do that. So again, it all starts with why. Why is achieving X a must? What will it mean to achieve that? How will it feel in your body to be able to watch your grandchild get married, or to be there in the stands when your grandchild does her dance class, or to be able to continue to fly fish when some of your colleagues maybe aren't able to do that anymore because they have sore shoulders or they have sore backs and they're no longer able to hike into the streams. Ultimately, this comes down to being able to live life on your own terms. That's what we're trying to be able to help you be able to do. So again, the more emotion that you can attach to this, the better. And there's an exercise that I heard, it's a little painful, not physically painful, but emotionally painful. And I'll just submit it to you if you're willing to go through it. But you're going to start with your initial why. Why do you want to do this? And then you're going to ask yourself, well, why do I want to do that? And then you see what comes up with that and say, so why do I want to be able to see my grandkids graduate? Well, why do I want to do that? Okay, well, I want to do that because my grandparents weren't alive for me to be able to see me graduate high school. Well, why is that meaningful to me to be able to do that? So you're going to continue to go down, ask yourself these questions a number of different times. It's called the 7 levels. So ultimately you can ask yourself 7 times. Most people don't get there, but the point of the exercise is to try and pull away some of the overlying more superficial issues and get down to that more emotional core. So it's an exercise that you can do. Maybe you already know what your why is, and that's cool, but don't underestimate the power of really having clarity about that. Then, what I would encourage you to do is think about, but also write down what are the 10 most meaningful activities that you want to be able to do. Why do we do this step? Because it helps to give you clarity. I mentioned earlier that when I go to the gym, I see people just kind of pressing on the machines and doing the elliptical without a clear sense of why they're doing it. So depending on what activities you want to be able to do, it might dictate that you want to spend more time doing strength training. Maybe it means that you need to spend more time doing cardiovascular training because your VO2 max or your cardiovascular capacity isn't where it could be. But this is where you're able to drill down into how to train because it's going to be more functional for what you need to do. What you can see there are a number of examples that I came up with. They don't have to be yours. Maybe some of them spark some ideas that you can look into, but you certainly don't have to take any of those things and have them as yours, but they're just designed to give you some thoughts. So again, being able to hike, being able to ski, how would that influence your training? Well, it's going to require a certain amount of cardiovascular endurance that maybe gardening wouldn't. If you want to be able to travel, particularly in Europe, or you want to be able to hike, you're going to have some balance with that. If you have a goal of being able to pick up a grandchild, well, you're going to need to be able to work on your strength. So you can hopefully start to see how coming up with your 10 most meaningful activities, and if it's 9, so be it. It's not that big of a deal. But I would encourage you to come up with as close to 10 as possible, because only 2 activities, I hope you can get more out of life than just those 2 things. So 10 is a pretty easy number to remember and to find for things. Now, once you have your 10 things, you've got your why, sort of your emotional core, your emotional juice. You've got your 10 most important things that you're going to guide your training to. Then what we want to talk about are some of the general categories with regards to physical health. And I mentioned the good news earlier, and the good news is that you can change at any age. The bad news is that Father Time is going to take from us as we go along on this journey of life. So we're going to have to pay a life toll, if you will, or a life tax as we go along. And what that's going to amount to are different levels of lost physical ability, particularly if you are not training. So here's what I mean by that. So, for example, your strength, and let's just define strength as your ability to move or lift some sort of load or weight one time. Now, you might move it more than one time, but ultimately that's the definition of strength. After the age of 40, without training, your strength is going to decline by 2 to 4% per year. So I did the math just sort of quickly in case you're interested. So let's say, for example, you had a goal of being able to travel when you're 90 years old. And part of that travel meant that you're on an airplane. And one of the things about being on an airplane is ideally you want more leg room. So you're going to put your bag in the overhead bin. Let's say that bag weighs 20 pounds. If we are accounting for a 4% loss of strength per year, for you to be able to lift that 20-pound bag at the age of 90, if we work back from that, that means at the age of 80, you need to be able to lift a 28-pound bag. Reasonable. But if we keep going back, at the age of 70, you need to be able to lift a 31-pound bag. Again, not too bad. But if we continue to go down the line, by the age of 60, again, accounting for a 4% loss per year if you're not training, at the age of 60, you need to be able to lift a 64-pound bag to account for that loss. So an analogy that I'll often make just to hopefully make this clear, I'm not sure if everybody's following, but if I'm shooting archery, for example, if I'm shooting a bow and arrow, the further away from the target I get, the more I have to account for gravity pulling that arrow down. If I'm at 20 yards, so I'm pretty close, I can basically just shoot a straight line into that target. But the further back I go, the more I'm going to have to account for gravity, and I'm going to have to aim upwards. Which means, again, if we go back to this analogy of strength, at the age of 60, you have to be able to lift essentially 65 pounds. It's 64.8 pounds by my math to be able to account for that year-over-year loss, that 4% loss, so that at the age of 90, you can lift the 20-pound bag. And that's why it's so important that even if you haven't exercised before, today is the day, because you don't want to just be strong for your age now. You don't want to just be able to barely lift the 20-pound bag today. You want to be able to hedge your bets so that you can lift that 20-pound bag next decade as well. And that's why strength training becomes so important. So if you're not doing a strength training routine at this point in time, I'm going to strongly encourage you to begin, seek out guidance, whatever you need to do, because the benefits are many. We could talk the whole time on that. As far as your muscle mass, that's going to decline about 1% per year. Again, if you're not training. And I want you to start to think about the idea the muscle that you have on your body is like your physical retirement account. So just like you have a certain amount of money that you have in your retirement account, and hopefully you've got enough to live the life that you want to do, whether that's travel or eating out, whatever it is, and not run out of money by the time you die, you don't want to run low on your physical retirement account as well. So your ability to stockpile muscle mass has huge implications for your functional capacity for the years to come. It's also hugely important for your metabolic health. It's one of the most important organs in your system. You can think of your muscles as their own specific organ. And again, we could talk a whole session on this, but I want you to think not from the framework of, oh, I don't want to build muscle because I don't want to get bulky. That's not typically going to happen, and that's harder and harder the older we get. I want you to think about your capacity to build muscle and bone, for that matter, is your physical retirement account, and you don't want to run short on that. Your cardiovascular capacity, that's going to decline by about 10% per decade. And so again, if your goal is to be able to hike when you're 80 or 90, just barely being able to hike now, let's say you're 70, 60, 50, 40, it's not going to cut it. You have to be more fit for your age now to account for that decline. So it's 10% per decade, but after the age of 50, it's up to 15% per decade that you will decline, particularly if you're not training. And there are a whole host of articles. I just wrote a recent blog post on this, a couple studies that came out, and they looked at cardiovascular fitness as a potential risk factor for what's called all-cause mortality. And that's just a fancy way of saying a person's chance of dying of anything at any given time. And what they found is that low cardiovascular fitness, so lack of endurance, if you want to think of it that way, is actually more 4 to 5 times, depending on the study that you read, when you compare a group of the lowest category of fitness to the highest category of fitness. The group in the lowest quality of cardiovascular endurance is 4 to 5 times likelier to die of all-cause mortality. Now, to put that in perspective, if you're a smoker, you are about 2 times more likely to die of all-cause mortality. So if we go back to this idea of poor cardiovascular or cardiorespiratory fitness puts you at 4 to 5 times more likely to die of all-cause mortality. That's striking. it's a stronger risk factor, or it has a stronger association with all-cause mortality than cardiovascular disease, coronary artery disease, hypertension, smoking, as I mentioned. A lot of the common risk factors that you don't want, that's the power of our cardiovascular health. So I want to encourage you, when you're thinking about the blueprint or the framework for your plan as you want to live a vibrant and healthy life all of your days, is to remember the importance of your cardiovascular fitness. Last thing that I'll talk about, I know we've got balance and flexibility on here, but I want to highlight power. Now, what is power? How do we define that? So power is strength times time. So it's how quickly or how explosively you can move something. And a lot of people don't understand this element of physical health. And here's why I think it's so important for you. I will argue that most falls, not counting for slips on the ice, but most falls are related to a lack of power. Because power is your ability to catch your toe and plant your foot back before you spill over. And as you can see there, I bolded that. That declines by 8 to 10% per year, which way outpaces all of those other categories of decline. So if you're getting your strength training in, awesome. If you're getting your cardiovascular training in, excellent. You've got your balance, your flexibility, awesome. But if you're not training for power, that's an area that I would strongly encourage you to consider. Now, we can talk more details later about that, but I just wanted to give you a sense of how rapidly that declines. And that's why when we look at most athletes, professional athletes, many don't make it past their 30s. The occasional is going to get into their 40s, but most are not going to be able to make it that far. And by and large, that's because of a loss of power. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to my wife, Lea, to take the next section.
Hello, everybody. So as I dive into the nutrition part of our Better with Age program, I thought it would be helpful to have a conversation about the distinctions between health span versus lifespan. So a lot of what Galen was talking about was about our physical health that we need in the realm of the years of what I would classify as our health span. So health span, for definitions, like a lot of people think about it as the healthy years of life, the years where we are doing our whys, we are doing the activities that bring most joy for us, and we are feeling good. It's kind of vague, I would say, but the more standardized definition from the World Health Organization is the health span is the amount of years where there's lack of disease states. So where we butt up against, if we could, for example, have the top 5 comorbidities for Americans: cancer, heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, for example. That's where they cut off the age range of healthy years of life, or the health span. And then we get into the disease states that ends up in the end with death. And in America, so the average health span today, and this is according to the World Health Organization, health span is about 66.1 years of life. And the average lifespan of a typical American is over 77 years, like 77.5 years of life. So we're spending about 20% of our lives in a state of disease. And that is a significant chunk of time. And when we look at a lot of the research, it's up and coming, there's a lot of focus and energy around longevity and health. And when we look at research around health span and the things that really help to improve our years in health span, which is what we want to have a long time of life doing the things we like in a short demise at the end, right? We all know that that's the end, but we want to enjoy the journey as we have it. Diet and exercise and our lifestyles make the biggest impact at improving our health span years. And as Galen mentioned earlier, and I will mention right now, there are studies to show this, and this is a great example at any stage of life. So this research study was of 70 to 90-year-old people who decided to make a lifestyle change with diet and exercise and stress management and sleep quality, and they were able to increase their health span years by about 10 years, which is pretty remarkable. Now, I have the privilege, a part of the Better with Age program, to take patients through a program called the 7 Systems Plan. And the 7 Systems Plan is based in functional medicine, and it covers the 7 systems of the body. It was created by Dr. Pat Luce in the early 2000s after he went through IFM training. And he started to incorporate this in his own practice for many years and decided he wanted to spread the word as he was having lots of great patient results of people going through this program. And so he started training practitioners like me. And now this program is in clinics all over the country. And so over 6 months, we cover all of these systems, the 7 systems of the body. And within that time frame, we give the foundational pieces for participants of the whys. So the connections with the body and how diet and exercise and lifestyle influence the functionality of the body. And also we meet biweekly on Zoom. We do Zoom meetings and a lot of support over the journey. It's a journey, right? Nobody can overhaul their lives overnight, but I see such great progress and health outcomes when patients go through the 6 months of bringing down blood sugars, reducing inflammation, blood pressure. I had a patient was raving to me that she lives in a 3-story apartment building. She's always taking the elevator, and now she's taking the stairs. That's remarkable. She's through this process has increased her health span. The diet in itself is based on the Mediterranean diet. It's a modified version of the Mediterranean diet. And when we look at the studies around longevity, there's a lot of connection and correlation with this style of diet. It's the most popular diet with longevity studies. And it's true. There's a lot of whole food, low in anti-inflammatory, well-balanced, a lot of emphasis on healthy whole fats, quality proteins, lots of fiber, lots of vegetables and fruits and legumes. So there's a well balance of a lot of baseline nutrients to support healing and gain our health span. We also incorporate for the right participants fasting and variable kinds of fasting. Another piece of the puzzle that's been well connected and with longevity and with a lot of the pieces of the puzzle to help patients with reducing chronic disease and improving their health span. I'm going to take you through a little teaser of a piece of this program under the communication system. I really wanted to highlight one really important key master hormone. Some of you may guess what it is. But this hormone, I think, plays a big role on either shortening our health span or lengthening our health span. And that hormone is insulin. I'd be curious to know, maybe I can get a little raise of hand, how many people here have ever had their fasting insulin checked? Good, good. I see. I would guess with the connections with MPM that you made working with practitioners that are more digging in a little bit more further are doing that, which is great. That is great. It's one of the markers over my many years of counseling, I feel like is undervalued and underlooked at. And knowing what our insulin levels are is really a good preventative because it's kind of like that canary in the coal mine. Now, it's important. Insulin is essential for life. We would die without it. And it's finding that right balance with it, because when it is at a higher level, it isn't good for our health. And if you're not familiar with what insulin does or is, insulin, I like to think about it as on the simplistic level, is the carrier, I call it like the delivery person or delivery service of glucose, which glucose comes from carbohydrates in our diets, like fruits and vegetables, or some of the standard American diets of breads, pasta, cereals. When that turns into blood sugar in our blood, the carbs turns into sugar, it needs a carrier system to get to our cells. And so I think about insulin as that little part of that delivery mechanism, and it carries the glucose to the cell and is a key to unlock the door. So then we get the sugars in the cell. Then we have energy, and that's optimal when we have the right amount. But what is happening in America is that we are having an epidemic level now of insulin resistance. And what insulin resistance is a compounding effect of high glucose, high blood sugar, and which leads to high insulin over time. And when our cells are constantly being bombarded by the message of, hey, open the door, we got to get this package inside, it stops opening the door, right? So they call it insulin resistant. That lock and key mechanism stops working. And so then we get more blood sugar and more insulin. It kind of goes higher and higher until we get insulin resistance, which leads to prediabetes, which then leads to type 2 diabetes. And I see a lot of this in the clinic. Now, what is estimated at is up to 50% of Americans now have some level of insulin resistance. And we don't really know exactly because it's often underlooked at, but they believe that this chronically high insulin, the precursor for insulin resistance, is much higher than 50%. It goes underdiagnosed or undiagnosed until a bigger chronic condition shows up. Now, the jury is still out, but a lot of functional integrative doctors do believe that optimally, for improving our health span, and maybe goals around weight loss or bringing down high blood sugars and reversing insulin resistance, we should have a fasting, like 12 hours of fasting insulin level of around 5 or below, right around there. And that level, it seems like health can be pretty good or more successful with reversing these sort of disease states or being able to break down body fat better. And to bring the connectivity back to the health span, high insulin is associated with all the top comorbidities in America. And so it's a big focal point if we're dealing with high insulin or we're progressed now to type 2 diabetes. If we want a longer health span, we need to take the time to help support the body to reverse those high levels, because it can be and it is reversible. I see it a lot of the times in the clinic. And when we look at the research again of lowering insulin, top tier is the diet, and a lot of features and research around the Mediterranean style diet being very helpful for reversing the insulin resistance and bringing down blood sugars. I will add a little caveat too of fasting. I think fasting with a really good, well-balanced, low-inflammatory diet can be very beneficial for that. And the pieces of the puzzle that Galen was mentioning of physical activity, muscles in motion, you break through that insulin resistance. And having a lot of good core foundation of muscle is so important for regulating and managing our blood sugar. And maintaining a healthy weight for you, I think, is also an important component as well. Now I'm going to feature 4 people who have gone through this program. Now, I'm going full disclosure, these are long-term success stories. So these are patients of Dr. Luce's who have been able to reverse their disease states and increase their health spans by implementing these tools that we have talked about today. Now, Sheila was Dr. Luce's worst patient, he would say. She had all of the 7 systems that were malfunctioning for her. She was an individual patient. And at the time when he first started working with her, she really didn't have a lot of whys. She didn't really feel well committed to making dietary changes at the time. And unfortunately, her health declined further. Her diabetes became out of control, and she ended up in a diabetic coma. She was in the ICU for 3 weeks. She almost died. Going through this experience, this horrific experience, unfortunately, and coming through and on the other end, she became very motivated under her whys. And she committed herself to doing the 7 systems program. I think she took about a year, and she went from a diabetic coma to reversing those disease states and working with her physician to get off of all of her medications, and has been long-term success in health. A big motivator that I often find for looking at the whys is retirement. People look at they're butting up against retirement, and then they look at their health and be like, I want to really enjoy this stage of life, and my health is not good. Mike is a great example of that. He was working towards a hard-earned retirement. He had type 2 diabetes and wasn't feeling well, and he decided to commit to his health, and he went through the 7 systems program and worked with his physician and was able to bring down his blood sugars, stabilize his type 2 diabetes, and actually reverse it, and work with his physician to get off of his medications. Dan as well. His why was looking at retirement, and he was somebody who really wanted to travel the country on his motorcycle, and he couldn't do that because of his condition, his type 2 diabetes. And so he also went through the 7 systems program, and same thing, reverses his condition, working with his physician to get off of his medications, and he was able to achieve his goal of going across the country on his motorcycle, which is really great. Now, Candy's my favorite, I will say, because I see patients like her a lot. And over 13 years ago, she was watching her children age and become adults and decide they wanted to start to have children. And her health wasn't good. She had out of control diabetes as well, and other comorbidities that were really bogging her down. Physical movement was very difficult for her, and she would feared that she would not be around to see her grandchildren. She went through the 7 systems program several times. I think she did a full year, and that was the end outcome. She reversed all of those conditions, and she became very healthy. Now, the tying the bow on all of that is over 13 years later, there she is with her grandchildren. She is doing what she wanted to do. And that is the beauty of this, is that when I look at helping patients, of feeling like there are things that they feel is out of control, this is something that we can work on and we can make a difference. So we are able to do the things and improve our health spans of life. So thank you. I'm going to bring Galen back in to wrap it up.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think that what Lea just finished with really could be a take home for anyone that maybe isn't where they want to be, but to know that you can. And there were a couple of examples there of people who are in pretty rough states, but they were able to get past that and get to a better place. So let's talk next steps. What are the big take home messages from our programming for you here today? So number one is be honest with yourself. Self-assessment, where are you and where do you want to be? If there's a huge gap there, the most common response for people is to do nothing, because getting from here to there seems overwhelming. It's normal and natural, but understand that you absolutely can get to this place, but you have to start motion. You have to start taking steps to put this into place. So be honest with yourself. Start with your why. Why do you want to get to here? Whatever that thing is that's so important for you, really drill down and discover why you want to do that and connect it to an emotion. So important. Come up with your 10 most meaningful activities. That again is going to give you clarity for your program, because if there are certain things that you want to be able to do, then that may dictate that there are certain things that you need to exercise. Maybe it's going to the gym and working more on your upper body strength, or maybe it's working more on your heart health. So it's your 10 activities that are going to help to customize this to what you want to get out of your life. Get baseline measurements. This kind of goes along with being honest with yourself. So there are a number of free ways to assess your VO2 max. That's one of the measures of your cardiovascular fitness. You can, if you plug in free VO2 max assessment in a Google search, you'll come up with a bunch of different ways to do that. Part of the program of what we do with the Better with Age program is to help people figure out what those baseline measurements are. But the old adage of what gets measured gets managed, that holds firm here. So if you can measure it, that will give you a way to be able to track to see if you are on target to get to where you need to be. Create your action plan. What is going to need to happen for you to get these things done? Do you need to rope in an accountability partner? If your significant other maybe also could use exercise or could change his or her diet, maybe part of the problem needs to be, or strategy needs to be, getting that person on board. Or maybe the other person is not going to get on board and you just need to make this decision for yourself. That's very possible too. But creating that action plan, I think, is really, really important. What time do you have to devote to exercise during the week? What are you going to do for your mental, your spiritual health, all those sorts of things? Commit to consistency. The old adage of consistency beats intensity holds firm here. So having a lot of motivation and going to the gym and working out really hard for 1 week and then getting so sore or injured that you can't work out next week does you no good. Consistency is the key. And then lastly, seek out guidance as needed. If you know what you need to do, put the steps into action and get it done. But if you're honest with yourself and there are gaps of your understanding about how to put an exercise program together, how many reps should I be doing? Should I be doing machines or free weights? Or I don't have any of that. I want to work out at home, but I don't know how to do that. That's when it really makes sense to hire a professional. So however you go about this program, we sincerely wish you the best. If you have a personal trainer, if you have a gym at home, whatever you do, we honestly want you to just have the best possible quality of life. We obviously have a program, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that program because it includes all of these elements that we've talked about to make it as simple as possible for you. So the Better with Age program, helping people build better bones, bodies, and minds. So whether it's bone density issues or losing weight, this program can help to get you to where you want to be. It's an kind of a hybrid program, so it involves some online course, video courses that you can do on your own time, but there are also twice a week meetings with Lea that are live, so you can ask questions. There are monthly meetings with me so that you can ask questions, so we can get the best of both worlds. We can customize it to you and your unique traits and circumstances, but you can also have a program that's plugged in and ready to go for most people to help you to get to where you need to be. First principles, again, working as a physical therapist for 15 years or so, no injuries. I spent a lot of time working on getting people out of pain and back to doing the things that they want to do. So this program really is formulated under the auspice of you are not going to get injured. And then again, it helps to take the guesswork out of exercise and nutrition. So what you get out of this program, as I mentioned, is personalized direction, figure out what baseline tests you need to do. The programming is there, plugged and ready to go. You can do the nutritional class with Lea. Some people do it for 6 months. Some people do it for more. You get twice a week access to her to be able to help get that guidance. You also get monthly access to our in-body scanner, which gives you much more accurate data about how much muscle you have versus fat. So you might have a single number on the scale, but if you don't know how much of that is being contributed by body fat versus muscle, that's where that can be a really helpful tool as you go along with your program. As I mentioned before, there's on-demand video courses that you can do for resistance training. That's going to include learning how to optimize for strength versus muscle building versus power, cardiovascular training, balance, all of those sorts of things that you'll have access to. And again, there's monthly check-ins with me to help answer questions as well. So outside of this program that we've put together, outside of the Better with Age program, if you were to hire Lea and I to go through this with you, it would amount to essentially $26,000, which is a whole heck of a lot of money. That's twice a week with me to customize things for you. That's twice a week with Lea for half the year. You can see I broke it down into 1 year and 2 years, but this program costs nowhere near that. Our passion is to help as many people as we can in this life that we have, not knowing how long that we have. And so the price of our program that we've put together, it's a 1 or 2 year commitment because we want to help you make meaningful changes. This is not top 3 exercises to build your best glutes or top 3 exercises to build most bone density. This is a lifestyle change. This is a program to help really, truly change your physical body, but also your mind comes along with that, and your gut health and all of the things with that. And there you can see the prices. So you can do a year or 2 years of exercise and nutrition. So that's with Lea and I combined. For some of you, you might be doing a specialized diet. Maybe you're working on some different issues, or you're working under the guidance of one of the docs at MPM. It's cool. You can still get the exercise component as well and just plug in your current nutrition into that. There you can see the pricing there. And because we just love our partners at MPM so much, we wanted to offer anybody attending this session 10% off. And this is through Sunday. So even though this will go on YouTube, that's totally fine. But this coupon code is good through Sunday. If you think that this is something that you're ready to commit to, go on there. You can decide if you want to do 1 year, 2 years. It's totally fine. But you can use that code to get 10% off. And if there's somebody that you know, you can share that with them, but it's only good through Sunday. So again, whether you work with Lea and I think is not the biggest take home from this session today. Our true hope is that you have a better sense of how to create an action plan. We're talking about the whys and the 10 most important activities, because that's going to give you clarity and the rocket fuel to keep going. So however that manifests for you, I think is really important. So I think that's all that we have. If you have more information or want more information about the program, you can go to the website there. So that's www.betterwithage.online. .com was taken, so we went with .online. And if you want to talk more, maybe about your individual circumstances, on there you can get a sign up for a free 15-minute call with either Lea or myself to learn a little bit more. And there's also a free breathing course on there. So Pam had mentioned the value of breathing as one of the pillars for MPM. There's a video course that's on there. It's free of charge. You sign up for it. You can send it to a loved one to do. It's just designed to help you learn how to breathe more effectively and to give you some tools to learn how to do that both when you're relaxed and when your core is activated. So that's the end of our presentation. I think what we'll do is we'll stop the recording and then we'll give some opportunity for people to ask some questions. But again, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you very much.